The Lego sun was a relentless jewel in the sky, baking the white walls of the Ikoyi mansion. But inside Chief Adela's study, the air was cold enough to form frost on the heart. Amara stood before the vast mahogany desk, feeling the weight of her father's stare like a physical pressure on her skin, on the gentle flare of her hips, on the cinch of her waist and the tasteful, fitted dress she wore. "Amara," Chief's voice finally came, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the Persian rug. "You will be meeting a very important associate of mine tonight. A business associate. From Korea. You will wear the navy blue kaftan. The loose one from your grandmother's closet." The words were a bucket of cold water. Amara's spirit, usually so vibrant, flickered. "Baba, this is just a simple dress. It's appropriate." "It is not simple," he cut her off, his fist coming down softly but with finality on the leather blotter. "It speaks a language I do not wish this man to hear. He is here for cement, steel and shipping contracts, not for distractions. Hide your curves, Amara. Do not be a problem. Be polite, be quiet, be invisible." The directive was clear, and it was ancient. Her body, her very presence, was once again something to be managed, contained, and hidden for the comfort of powerful men. She nodded, the fight leaving her. It was easier that way. Little did she know, her father's fear was not of generic distraction, but of a specific, potent, and dangerous kind of attention. That evening, the mansion was filled with the scent of jollof rice and pepper soup, but the atmosphere was sterile. Amara floated through the rooms in the oversized kaftan, feeling like a ghost in her own home. She was a silhouette undefined. Her father smiled, pleased. Then he arrived. Kim Joon-Ho entered the grand foyer not with a sound, but with a shift in the atmosphere. He was tall, his posture so perfectly erect it seemed to defy gravity. His suit was a masterpiece of dark wool, his hair swept back with severe elegance. He bowed to Chief Adeola with a precision that felt more like a calibrated maneuver than a greeting. "Chief Adeola, your home is magnificent," Joon-Ho said, his English flawless, his accent a cool, smooth river over stones. "Welcome, Joon-Ho-sai. We are honored." The man's eyes, dark and impossibly keen, swept the room. They passed over Amara with a polite, distant acknowledgement. She felt a pang of something, irritation perhaps. She was successfully invisible and it stung. Dinner was a symphony of clinking silver and her father's booming voice discussing logistics. Amara was silent, a part of the furniture, until her younger brother, Toby, whispered a joke about the stiff formality of their guest. Amara tried to suppress a laugh, but it escaped, a warm, rich, melodic sound that seemed to shock the quiet air of the dining room. She shook her head at Toby, her eyes lighting up with sisterly reprimand. At the head of the table, Kim Joon-Ho froze. His chopsticks, poised over a piece of fish, halted mid-air. His head turned slowly, deliberately. That gaze, which had dismissed her all evening, now locked onto her. It was not a leer. It was not crude. It was the look of a cartographer who has found a lost continent. It was profound, startling recognition. In that moment of unguarded animation, he did not see a hidden curve or a silenced daughter. He saw a woman of fiery spirit, shining brilliantly through the drab fabric of suppression. He watched the way her lips formed her smile, the intelligent spark in her eyes as she silently chided her brother, the life that radiated from her like heat from a stone. She was no longer invisible. She was the only thing in the room in high definition. The moment passed. Joon-Ho finished his meal, conversed politely, and thanked her father. As he left, he bowed again. "A fruitful partnership awaits," he said, his voice neutral. But as he straightened, his eyes found Amara's, standing in the shadows of the hallway. For less than a second, the mask slipped. Something fierce, something intensely curious, flashed in his eyes. Then it was gone, and he was ushered out. Chief Adeola sighed with deep relief, clapping a hand on his son's shoulder. The directive had worked. His daughter had been a non-entity. Up in the penthouse suite of the Eco Hotel, Kim Joon-Ho stood at the window, the chaotic, vibrant lights of Lagos sprawling below him. He loosened his tie, a gesture of uncharacteristic release. The business deal was solid, profitable. But his mind was not on cargo ships or profit margins. It was fixated on a laugh, a flash of spirit, a woman hiding in plain sight. A slow, deliberate smile touched his lips, a crack in his icy composure. This was not part of the plan. Some targets, however, are not for acquisition, but for revelation. The deal was about cement. So why was Kim Joon-Ho, a man who built empires on cold calculation, suddenly preoccupied with a sound, a smile, and the shape of a soul he was never meant to see? The following afternoon, the tension did not dissipate. It merely changed venues. Joon-Ho arrived at the Adeola home again, not for a boardroom meeting, but citing a desire to understand the cultural context of his partners. Chief Adeola's welcome was strained, his eyes constantly tracking his daughter as she was summoned to pour tea. Amara moved with practiced grace, but she felt Joon-Ho's attention like a laser. It followed the arc of her wrist, the subtle shift of the kaftan's fabric over her shoulder. It was analytical, intense, and utterly unnerving. "Your daughter has a thoughtful presence," Joon-Ho stated abruptly, interrupting Chief's monologue about Port Authority regulations. Last evening, even in her silence, she observed everything. Chief Adeola waved a dismissive hand. "Amara. She is a dreamer. Her head is in the clouds of art and music, not in the realities of business." "Dreams are the blueprint for new realities," Joon-Ho countered. His tone mild, but his eyes, fixed on Amara who had frozen while pouring, were sharp. "In my country we value such perspective. Can identify unique opportunities. Overlooked value." The conversation became a delicate, terrifying duel. Chief talked of tariffs and tonnage, desperate to anchor the discussion in the safe, impersonal sea of commerce. Joon-Ho, however, was a master navigator, and he kept steering the conversation back to the shores of Amara, commenting on her grace, the calm efficiency of her movements, the quiet intelligence in her eyes. Each word was a polished stone dropped into a still pond, and Amara watched the ripples of panic spread across her father's face. The climax was a silent one. As Amara rose to clear the empty china, the hem of her long kaftan whispered against the leg of the heavy table. She misjudged the space, her balance shifting slightly. It was a stumble so minor no one else might have noticed. But Kim Joon-Ho moved. In a fluid, startlingly fast motion, he was out of his chair. His hand did not shoot out to grasp her arm, which would have been intimate and inappropriate. Instead, it went to the tray she carried, his fingers stabilizing it, brushing against hers in the process. A current, sharp and sweet and terrifying, shot up her arm. Time folded in on itself. The room vanished. There was only the cool strength of his fingers against hers, the startling proximity of his body, and his eyes holding hers. Up close, she saw the storm behind the calm, a focused, blazing intensity that was for her and her alone. This was not about spilled tea. It was an instinct to protect her. "Careful," he murmured. The word a low vibration meant only for her ears. Chief Adeola shot up, his chair screeching against the marble floor. "Amara, clumsy girl. Your mind is elsewhere. Go to the kitchen at once." His voice was a bark of pure, undiluted fear. Flushed and trembling, Amara fled. But as she reached the doorway, she glanced back. Joon-Ho had already retaken his seat, his face a calm mask. But his eyes followed her until she disappeared. Then he turned back to her father, who was mopping his brow. Leaning forward, Joon-Ho's voice dropped into a lower register, all polite pretense evaporating to reveal the steel beneath. "Chief Adeola, you have a treasure in your home, and it seems you are treating her like common stone. This is a critical error in valuation. We should discuss reassessment." The color drained from Chief Adeola's face. This was no longer about hiding a daughter's figure. This was a predator from a world of shadows and ruthless calculus, calmly pointing at what he wanted and questioning its keeper's competence. The game was no longer business. The game was now Amara. And her father had just realized he was hopelessly outmatched. Her father wanted her invisible. But under Kim Joon-Ho's piercing gaze, Amara was beginning to feel like the only visible thing in the world, and the heat of that attention was both terrifying and thrilling. Chief Adela's response was swift and absolute. Amara was placed under a polite house arrest. The gate stayed locked. Her phone was temporarily monitored for security reasons. Her plans with friends were cancelled. The reason given was sensitive business negotiations, but the unsaid words hung in the air. It's because of him. So, when the sleek, black sedan with windows so dark they seemed to drink the sunlight pulled up to the gates 2 days later, Amara's breath caught. It was not her father's car. The driver who emerged was Korean, dressed in a somber suit, his expression unreadable. He spoke to the guard at the gate, handed him a phone. Minutes later, the housekeeper found Amara reading in the sunroom. "Miss Amara, your father has sent a car. He said you have an appointment at the Nike Art Gallery for the preview you wanted to see. He said, it is a peace offering." Every nerve in Amara's body screamed in warning. Her father did not give peace offerings. He gave decrees. Yet, the craving for freedom, for the outside world, for the art that was her solace, was a potent drug. The risk felt immense, but the cage was crushing. Hesitantly, she entered the car. The interior was silent, cool, and smelled of sandalwood and quality leather. As they merged into the hectic flow of Lagos traffic, the driver's voice came through the intercom, calm and accented. "Miss Amara, Mr. Kim has instructed me to ensure your comfort. There is chilled water in the console. The gallery is 20 minutes away. Mr. Kim." The name was the key that turned the lock, revealing the terrifying truth. This was not her father's doing. This was extraction. A kidnapping executed with the precision and calm of a corporate merger. "Stop the car," Amara said, her voice trembling. "I want to get out." "I cannot, Mississippi. My primary orders are for your safety and discretion." "You are safe." If the word meant nothing. Panic fluttered in her chest. Yet the driver was not threatening. He was eerily respectful. It confused her terror, made it somehow worse. The car did not stop at the gallery in Lekki. It glided smoothly into the underground parking of the Eco Hotel. The dread solidified into a cold, hard knot in her stomach. The driver opened her door. "Please, Mississippi. He is waiting upstairs." The private elevator was a silent ascent into the unknown. Her reflection in the bronze doors was pale, her eyes wide. The doors opened directly into a penthouse foyer, and then into a vast living space. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to her, silhouetted against the sprawling view of the Atlantic Ocean. He turned, and the man from the business dinner was gone. This was Joon-Ho unguarded. The intensity was bare, unconcealed. "You," she breathed, anger momentarily burning away the fear. "You lied. You kidnapped me." "I created an alternative path where your father had built a wall," he corrected, his voice quiet. He took a few steps closer, stopping at a respectful but charged distance. "The gallery appointment is real. It is in 1 hour. But first we talk. Without his walls. Without his directives. My father will have the police here in minutes." "He will not." Joon-Ho's certainty was absolute, and it chilled her more than any shout could. To do so would be to declare a war he cannot win on a battlefield he does not understand. "He knows I would never physically harm you." He took another step, his gaze tracing her features as if memorizing them. "He fears I will see you. But Amara, I saw you the moment you defied that sterile room with your laugh. I have seen nothing else since." The use of her name, so soft and certain, disarmed her. "Why? Is this about power? About beating my father?" A shadow, something resembling pain, crossed his features. "This has nothing to do with your father. This is about a man who has lived his life reading spreadsheets and threat assessments, suddenly hearing a symphony." He gestured vaguely toward the window, toward the world he commanded. In my world, every variable is controlled. Every outcome is calculated. You are an equation I cannot solve. A beautiful, unpredictable weather system. And I find I have no desire to seek shelter. I wish to stand in the open air and feel the rain. The confession was so stark, so utterly unexpected, that it stripped Amara of all her prepared responses. The outrage, the fear, the threats. This was not the script of a villain. This was the raw, disorienting script of a man who was just as much a captive to this pull as she was. Trapped in his sky-high sanctuary with a confession that felt like both a trap and a truth, Amara faced a terrifying question. Was she the prisoner of a dangerous man, or a witness to the most vulnerable moment of a powerful one's life? True to his word, Joon-Ho took her to the Nike Art Gallery. The ride was silent, but the air between them in the back of the sedan was thick with unspoken words. He had, impossibly, made her an accomplice in her own kidnapping. The gallery was a burst of color and life. For a moment, Amara forgot her fear, drawn to a powerful mixed-media piece by a young Nigerian artist. It depicted a woman wrapped in chains that were also blooming vines. It's about constraints that try to shape you, but your nature breaks through anyway, Amara murmured, more to herself than to him. Joon-Ho stood beside her, his hands clasped behind his back. It is not the chains that are interesting, he said quietly. It is the force of the life within that makes them part of the bloom. The artist understands that pressure can create a different kind of beauty. She looked at him, surprised. He wasn't just looking at the art. He was interpreting it through a lens she understood. They moved through the exhibition and she spoke, tentatively at first, then with growing passion about symbolism, about the Lagos art scene, about the struggle for expression. He listened. Not the polite, nodding listening of a bored companion, but with deep, focused attention, asking sharp, insightful questions. The test came when the gallery owner, a patronizing European man, drifted over. He began to explain the piece to Joon-Ho in condescending terms, dismissing the artist's naive political messaging. Before Amara could summon a retort, Joon-Ho spoke. But not in English. In fluent, icy French. He dismantled the man's critique. He cited art history, contemporary theory, and then, calmly, he referenced the points Amara had made just minutes earlier, presenting them as definitive insights. The lady, Joon-Ho concluded in English, his arm subtly gesturing towards Amara, has a more nuanced understanding of the cultural context than your catalogue provides. One should listen more than one speaks in a place like this. The gallery owner stammered and retreated. Amara stood stunned. He hadn't just defended the art. He had championed her. He had weaponized her thoughts and made them his own. It was a silent, powerful alliance. But the public world has eyes. A society blogger, there for the champagne, recognized Chief Adila's daughter and the mysterious, striking Korean tycoon. A smartphone camera, discreetly raised, captured them in a moment of intense conversation. Amara's face animated, Joon-Ho's gaze fixed on her with an expression that was far from businesslike. The photo was sent, uploaded, tagged. It was a lit fuse. In the car returning to the hotel, the spell was broken by Joon-Ho's phone buzzing. He glanced at it, his face hardening imperceptibly. He showed her the screen, the blurry but unmistakable photo, already circulating on a gossip site. The headline read, Adeola heiress's new international friend? Your father will see this, Joon-Ho said, his voice grim. This was not my intention for today. Amara's heart sank. The brief escape was over. The consequences were now digital and they were spreading fast. The gallery had not been a gambit of seduction, but it had become one of exposure, and they were both caught in the frame. The explosion happened behind closed doors. Chief Adeola did not shout. When Amara was summoned to his study, his rage was a cold, quiet thing, more terrifying than any storm. He placed his tablet on the desk, the gossip site headline glaring up at them. Explain this, he said, his voice dangerously flat. It was an art exhibition. He appreciates art. It was a coincidence. Amara lied, her voice weak. Do not insult my intelligence. The calm shattered. I made you invisible, and you went out with him and let the whole of Lagos see. Do you know what you are playing with? Do you know who he is? He's a businessman from Seoul, Amara retorted, a spark of defiance igniting. He is the heir to a gilded. Chief Adeola roared, the foreign word slicing through the air. A syndicate. His business is a beautiful front for a world of violence, of extortion, of vengeance that goes back generations. The men who work for him are not clerks, Amara. They are killers. He is not a man who takes a wife. He consumes. He possesses. And when he is done, or when you become a liability, he will discard you, and his enemies, or his own family, will tear you apart to get to him. The words painted a picture of a gilded nightmare. Amara's blood ran cold. You're judging him without knowing him. I know his kind. Her father leaned forward, his eyes desperate. I have done business with the wolves at the edge of his world. I know the stories. He will drag you into the darkness, and he will not be able to protect you. He is the darkness. He stood, decision hardening his face. You will go to your Aunt Kemi in London. There is a flight tomorrow night. You will tell no one. You will disappear from his radar and from Lagos. If you do not, I will pull out of the shipping deal. It will bankrupt us. It will also break our agreement with him, and I cannot predict what a man like that will do in response. The wrath will fall on this family. Is that what you want? It was the ultimate weapon. Her love for her family twisted into a chain. It was exile or ruin. A choice between a man she was terrifyingly drawn to and everyone she had ever known. The ultimatum was not a choice at all. It was a sentence. The departure hall of Murtala Muhammad International Airport was a cathedral of goodbyes, but Amara's was a funeral. She moved like an automaton, checked in. Her single suitcase a pitiful testament to a life appended. Her father's stern-faced driver watched her until she passed through the first security checkpoint. Her heart was a stone in her chest. Every step toward the gate felt like a betrayal. Of herself, of the strange connection she'd felt, of the future she'd glimpsed. She thought of Joon-Ho's intense gaze. His quiet confession in the penthouse. Was it all a lie? Was her father right? As she approached the passport control line, a familiar figure detached itself from a pillar. Kim Joon-Ho. He looked different. His usual impeccable composure was frayed. His hair was slightly disheveled. His eyes blazed with a frantic energy she had never seen. He stepped directly into her path, ignoring the stares around them. Don't go. It wasn't a request. It was a raw, guttural plea. Amara stopped, shock holding her rooted. How did you? I know everything, he said, his voice low and urgent. The flight. The threat. His fear. He took a step closer. People were starting to stare. He told you what I am. Did he tell you why? Did he tell you I spend every day trying to build something legitimate from the ashes of my father's legacy? That I am surrounded by wolves, and seeing you was the first pure, uncalculated thing to happen to me in a decade. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. He said you would destroy me. My family. I would burn down my own empire before I let a shadow touch you, Joon-Ho said, the conviction in his voice absolute, terrifying. Your father's safety, his business, is now under my protection. Not as leverage. As a promise. To you. Airport security, alerted by the commotion, began to move toward them. Two of Joon-Ho's own men, who had been lingering nearby, tensed, their hands subtly moving inside their jackets. It was a public powder keg. A Korean tycoon, a Nigerian heiress, a squadron of security. It was a scene screaming for a scandal or a shootout. Amara looked at the boarding pass in her hand, then into Joon-Ho's desperate, earnest face. She saw the man who saw her, not the asset to be hidden. She saw the danger, but also the fierce, protective promise. Her father's fear was of a phantom. The man before her was real, and he was choosing her at immense cost. As security officers closed in, Amara made her choice. She didn't speak. She simply let her boarding pass slip from her fingers. It fluttered to the polished floor. The message was clear. Joon-Ho's shoulders slumped with a relief so profound it was almost violent. He gave a sharp, almost imperceptible nod to his men, who relaxed their stance. He then turned to the approaching security, pulling out his phone and his credentials, his voice shifting back to its cool, authoritative tone, ready to deploy lawyers and diplomats. But his other hand found Amara's. His fingers laced through hers, tight, anchoring. She wasn't going to London. She was stepping into the storm with him. And for the first time that night, she felt not fear, but a terrifying sense of rightness. Defying gravity and her father, Amara followed Joon-Ho not into hiding, but into the heart of his world, Seoul. He did not sequester her. Instead, he became her guide. He showed her the gleaming tower that housed his legitimate corporate headquarters, a world of glass, quiet efficiency, and staggering wealth. He introduced her as a key consultant on our new African ventures, a title that commanded respect. But he also showed her the shadows. One evening, from the window of a quiet tea house in Insadong, he pointed out a nondescript building across the street. "My uncle's office," he said quietly. "The traditional side of the family business." He did not elaborate, but the weight in his voice said everything. He was a man living in two worlds, building a bridge between them with himself as the precarious span. He took her to meet his mother. The woman lived in a beautiful, serene Hanok house, a world away from the steel and glass. She was elegance personified, but her eyes held a deep, settled sadness. She greeted Amara with formal warmth, but later, while Joon-Ho took a business call, she poured more tea and spoke softly. "My son," she said, her English careful, "has carried winter in his heart since he was a boy, forced to become a man too soon. You are the first spring I have seen in his eyes in many years." She reached over and patted Amara's hand. "But spring thaw brings floods. It washes away the old paths. Be his strength, but be careful. The old paths do not like to be washed away." It was a blessing and a warning in one. Amara understood. She was not just dating a man. She was intervening in a dynasty's fate. The old paths struck back sooner than expected. Joon-Ho's uncle, a man with a smile like a slit in stone, invited them to a dinner. It was held in a private room of an opulent, old-world restaurant. The atmosphere was thick with implied threat masked as family concern. "So, Joon-Ho," the uncle said, his voice slick with false warmth, "your focus seems diverted. Our friends in Lagos are asking questions. The Adeola contract is valuable, but is it worth the complication?" His eyes slid to Amara, dismissing her as one would a piece of decorative but inconvenient furniture. Joon-Ho, who had been gently placing food on Amara's plate, went very still. The gentle man from the gallery vanished. When he looked up, his eyes were black ice. He responded in rapid, low Korean, his voice devoid of any warmth. It was the tone of a commander, a don. Amara did not understand the words, but she understood the power dynamics. Joon-Ho was not pleading or explaining. He was laying down a law. He mentioned names, numbers. He spoke of consequences for overreach, and clear lines of authority. His uncle's smile tightened, his knuckles whitening around his chopsticks. The other men at the table looked down at their plates. The conversation shifted, forced into banalities. But the message had been delivered. Amara had witnessed the duality. The visionary CEO was also the feared scion. He had shown her this not to frighten her, but because he refused to hide any part of himself from her. The cost of his protection, of his love, was the full, unvarnished truth of his reality. They returned to Lagos not as fugitives, but as a united front. Joon-Ho requested, or rather summoned, a meeting with Chief Adeola. It was not in the family home, but in a neutral, secure conference room. Chief Adeola looked older, defeated. He had been contacted by Joon-Ho's uncle, who had made veiled threats about unreliable partners and hostile reassessments of the Lagos port interests. "You see," Chief said to Amara, his voice weary. "I told you. The darkness comes." Joon-Ho stepped forward. He did not address the uncle's threats. Instead, he placed a new contract on the table. "This is not from my family," he said. "This is from my corporation. It is a merger. A 51-49% split in your favor for a new, integrated logistics firm. Your assets are rolled in at a 15% premium. Your family's wealth and legacy are secured, independent of any external pressures." Chief Adeola stared, stunned. It was a lifeline, not a weapon. "Why? Why would you do this?" Joon-Ho then looked at Amara, who stood by the window. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet but filled with a resonance that shook the room. "Because you are her father. Because her happiness and security are now the central pillars of my own. I am not asking for a temporary distraction. I am declaring my intention to build a legitimate empire with her. Your approval would be welcome. But it is not required." He was not fighting her father. He was making him an offer he couldn't refuse, while rendering his objections irrelevant. He was proving his love not with poems, but with unassailable security and ruthless protective strategy. He loved her enough to secure her whole world. Chief Adeola looked from the contract to his daughter's face, which was full of a quiet strength he hadn't seen before, to the formidable man who had just redefined power in the room. He saw not a predator, but a protector of a different, more formidable order. The fight left him. He nodded once, a surrender to a future he could no longer control. So here we are. The gavel of fate has fallen, and its echo has reshaped the landscape of two families, two continents. Chief Adeola, faced with annihilation from one direction and an unbreakable alliance from the other, chose the only path that guaranteed his daughter's safety and his legacy's survival. He stood down, the fear in his eyes replaced by a dawning weary respect for the sheer, unyielding scale of Joon-Ho's commitment. But let us be clear. This story was never truly about a father's blessing. It was about a collision, a meeting of two souls from galaxies that should never have touched, who recognized in each other a missing frequency, a silent song the other was built to hear. Tonight there is no loose kaftan. Amara stands on the balcony of the Seoul penthouse, wrapped in a shawl against the cool evening air. The city is a river of light below, a testament to the kingdom Kim Joon-Ho is building from the shadows of his past. The door behind her opens softly. His arms slide around her waist, his chin coming to rest gently on her head. He says nothing. The battles, the negotiations, the threats, they are outside this quiet circle. Here there is only the shared warmth, the synchronized breath, the peace they have carved out together. "He sees me," Amara had whispered to her best friend on a late-night call, the wonder still fresh in her voice. "Not just what my father wanted hidden, but what I am. The art, the anger, the passion, even the dark parts of his world. He doesn't hide them. He lets me see. He trusts me with his shadows, and asks me to share my light." And she chose him. She chose the man who orchestrated a polite extraction just to hear her thoughts, who defended her intellect in a foreign tongue, who stared down a syndicate elder without flinching, and who secured her father's future not with threats, but with a better deal. She chose the duality, the danger, and the profound, unwavering truth she found in his eyes. Back in Lagos, Chief Adeola looks at the new merger documents. They are favorable beyond his dreams. It is not a surrender document. It is the foundation of a new dynasty, one built by the man who loves his daughter. He finally understands. Joon-Ho didn't fall for a distraction. He found his true north. But remember, dear viewer, even the most powerful love stories exist in a world that never stops turning. That silent uncle in Seoul did not concede. He merely retreated into the shadows, his smile cold and patient. And in a locked drawer of Joon-Ho's desk, a secure file with Chief Adeola's name on it contains secrets from the past, old debts, hidden compromises, that have not yet seen the light. Amara and Joon-Ho have won their battle. They have their peace, their fierce, hard-won understanding. But in the underworld of legacy and power, peace is simply the quiet moment between storms. What ghosts are in that locked file, waiting to be unleashed? What move is the silent uncle planning from the depths of his traditional office? Their love is the fortress they have built together. But the most cunning enemies are those who wait for you to believe the war is over. If your heart raced with every stolen glance across a dinner table, if you held your breath as a car drove toward an unknown fate, if you felt the ache of an impossible choice at an airport, then this story is not finished for you. This universe of dangerous romance and high-stakes emotion is just beginning. New threats are gathering on the horizon. Old secrets are stirring in their locked drawers. To make sure you are the first to witness the next chapter of Amara and Joon-Ho's epic story, to see if their fortress can weather the coming storm, you know what you must do. Take your finger and press that subscribe button. Turn on all notifications. This story doesn't end here. It just enters a new, more dangerous season. Are you ready to see what happens when the hidden truths finally break free? Subscribe now.